Hello viewers, welcome back to my live, and I will first talk about the last few long form videos that 85 going all the way to video number 205. So video number 185 talked about the different nicknames of the different states in the United States of America. As you know, there are 50 states in the United States of America, and each one of them, apart from probably Washington, has an official nickname. So I talked about those nicknames, and I also talked about how those nicknames came into being. I'll just give you one example, such as Pennsylvania is known as the Keystone State. Now, Keystone, as you know, is a very important aspect of building a new structure. It's a very important part of a construction. So Pennsylvania was a very important part of the original 13 colonies in the United States of America. It was at the center of it, and even today, in the atmosphere of American presidential elections, it will not be too far-fetched to suggest that whoever wins Pennsylvania in the upcoming presidential elections in November of 2024 is going to be the next president of the United States of America. So I talked about all the 50 states, starting from Alaska and all the 50 states that are there, and I gave a version of how they got their nicknames. And of course, I got all this information online, and I think it will be a very interesting video for you to see. It's 1 hour 15 minutes long, so it took a long time in making, but I felt I did justice to it. The next video I talked about, the next video was video 186, where I talked about the different parts of a flame. If you have seen the flame of a candle, you would have seen that there are different colors in different parts of the flame. The part at the very center, just at the candle wick, is black in color. That is the coldest part of the flame of a candle, and it is quite interesting that the part where you light the matchstick or where you light the candle, that is the coldest part of the flame. The part that comes into contact with fire is the coldest part of a candle flame. And as you go outwards, you have the yellow zone, which is hotter, and the blue zone, which is very difficult to see. It's actually the hottest zone of a candle flame. So I talked about the different zones of a candle flame because I have had the opportunity to look at many candle flames in the last 1 month. Video number 187 talked about the oldest private college in Asia. And yes, not just in India, but in Asia. And the oldest private college in Asia was our medical college. So originally it was a private medical college, but after independence, I believe in the 50s, it became a government medical college run by the government of West Bengal, and till today it is run by the government of West Bengal. Video 188 talked about how to perform flexible nasoendoscopy, especially from the point of view of MRCS ENT OSCE. Now, the most common mistake that is often made is when we hear the term flexible nasoendoscopy, we think to the back of the nose, examine the base of the tongue and the larynx as well. 188. Video number 189 talked about a new series, word of the day. I started with phalanstery. Phalanstery is a term which was coined by the French philosopher Charles Fourier. It talked about a building which was self-sufficient, which had everything. And so there were people working in that building who would produce substances, and everybody would benefit from it. So it's kind of like a utopian society, kind of like communism as people want it to be, but never have seen in the world. So it's communism condensed into one particular building. That is phalanstery. It combines the two words phalange and monastery. Phalange, of course, is a unit of the army. I think it's derived from ancient Greek, and monastery, as we all know, is a holy building where monks stay, especially Buddhist monks. The next video I talked about the recurrence of laryngeal cancer. Now, this is a Breaking Bad news station which is quite frequently asked in MRCS ENT OSCE, so I practiced this with Dr. Pritha Ghosh. Dr. Pritha Ghosh, of course, has passed MRCS ENT OSCE, and this video was recorded long back, but I uploaded it recently. Next up, I talked about how this was video number 191, where I talked about how night shift work or working at nights can lead to adverse health outcomes such as cancer. And this is something which has been documented not just in medical journals but has been uploaded on YouTube numerous times. Now, what I found frustrating about this is that while there are many videos on YouTube talking about the adverse outcomes of not sleeping adequately at night, or people who work at night are putting their health at risk, there isn't a video that I could find easily which talked about how to mitigate the damage caused by working at nights, because some people do not have a choice. Some people have to work at night, and so what happens to their health? How do they take care of their health, or do they just sacrifice their health for the greater good of society? So that is the reason I made that video. And in this particular video, video 191, I talked about how you can uh, take measures to protect yourself from getting all the adverse health results that are associated with working at nights. And working at night means working between the hours of 11 p.m. and I believe 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So please watch that video. I have all the details in this video. Please, it will be worth watching if you are also working at night or know someone who works at nights. In video 192, I talked about 36-hour shifts. Now, this has been in the news of late. 36 hours. Why do doctors have to work 36-hour shifts, and why it should no longer be the case? That is what I talked about in video 192. Now, why doctors have to work 36-hour shifts is because it's basically a 24-hour shift, and then one does not get to go home at the end of the shift. One has to continue working the next day without a leave immediately after the 24-hour shift, which I believe is inhuman. You should get a break immediately after the 24-hour shift. Although even a 24-hour shift is difficult, but the bare minimum is if you have worked 24 hours, you should get to go home and be given a compensatory leave immediately after that to rest. But that doesn't happen, and so one day gets converted into the next working day, and it ends up being a 36-hour shift. So say somebody starts working at 8 a.m. on Monday, they have to work till 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and then they have to work through the day, work through the normal working Tuesday, and that usually accounts for 36 hours. So that is something I am totally against, and these are, unfortunately, this is the norm in many parts of India, and I believe this was the norm in many parts of the world as well. But actions have been taken, especially in Europe, especially in the UK, where such grueling working shifts are no longer the norm. And it is not just beneficial to the person who is having to work these hours, but it's also beneficial to patients, because a person who has worked 36 hours will not be in peak functioning capacity at the end of the shift. In video number 193, I talked about zone of death. So this is a America inside, I believe, Yellowstone National Park. A particular state in the I think Idaho. I think it is in the Idaho part of the Yellowstone National Park, where in this particular area nobody lives. So the law in the United States is you have to constitute a jury of people who are living in that area. But since nobody lives in that area, a jury cannot possibly be constituted. So if somebody commits a crime, including murder, a jury will not be present. A jury cannot be formed, so nobody can be tried for murder if it is committed in this particular area of the Yellowstone National Park. So it is popularly known as zone of death, and I have found it very interesting that there is a part of land in the most developed country in the world, possibly United States of America, where technically at least murder is legal. Next up, I talked about, this is video number 194, where I talked about the famous script writing duo Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar. There is a very interesting Amazon Prime series that has come out recently talking about Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar. It is titled, and in this Angry Young Men it's a 3-episode series. It's very enjoyable to watch, but I have only one problem with this series. It doesn't answer the one question that I wanted to watch this series for, it doesn't explicitly talk about why Salim Khan and Javed Akhtar stopped working together. But still, it's very interesting to watch, so I strongly urge the viewers to watch this series. Next up, video number 195 talked about what we need versus what we want. And what we need can be talked about by Abraham Maslow's pyramid of needs or hierarchy of needs. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we talk about it starts at the bottom with physiological needs like air, water, and then we move up to security needs, job security, physical security. Then we have emotional needs like feeling connected to a family. Then we have self-esteem needs like feeling recognized for the work we do. And finally, we have the self-actualization needs, which is achieving the full potential, that is becoming a content creator on YouTube. But that is what we need. What we want right now, I believe, is justice. And in video number 196, I talked about Sigmund Freud because this was a request from one of my viewers, and I take requests from my viewers very, very seriously. So somebody wanted me to talk about Sigmund Freud, so I talked about Sigmund Freud's explanation of id, ego, and superego, and I also talked about the stages of psychosexual development that Sigmund Freud talked about. Now, Sigmund Freud's theories are not as mainstream as they once were. They have been debated widely in the community of psychiatrists. Some of them have been debunked also, but Sigmund Freud remains one of the pioneers of psychiatry, and his name is always it does carry value, although his theories may not. In video number 197, I practiced speaking English from the occupational English test point of view with Dr. Pritha Ghosh. Now, occupational English test is perhaps the easiest English test that one can take to work as a doctor in the UK. Because if you want to work in the United Kingdom, you have to prove that you are proficient in the use of the English language. Now, there are two English tests that are acceptable to the General Medical Council. General Medical Council, of course, is the governing body that regulates who can practice medicine in the United Kingdom. The two English tests are IELTS and OET. The advantage of OET is it is designed specifically for healthcare professions, and it does not really expect you to know English to a very high degree. So it's easier to pass, but it is more expensive, and of course it is less popular than IELTS. Next up, video number 198, I talked about the top 10 languages that are spoken in London apart from English. Now, when I was in London and I was walking up and down the streets of London, busy streets of London, I actually did not hear much English. And this is just my experience. Maybe I was walking in certain parts of London where English is not spoken that often. Maybe I was walking around the parts that are more frequently visited by tourists, and that probably explains why English was not frequently heard. But so it was a very interesting experience for me. So I came across this data, and this is a research carried out by an adult education college in London. I think it's called City Lit. It's in central London. It's actually not that far from the Royal College of Surgeons of England, and it found very interestingly that the most common language spoken in London by people apart from English is Bengali, which happens to be my first language as well. So I found that very interesting, that Bengali is the second most commonly spoken native language in London. Next up, this was video number 199, where I talked about how the famous American gangster Al Capone was finally arrested and brought to justice. Now, Al Capone is believed to have committed every crime under the sun, but he was arrested ultimately for tax evasion. And while tax evasion sounds like something very not as serious as the other crimes that Al Capone may have committed, but tax evasion is the option that the federal investigating authorities own, and they were able to prove the charges and were able to send Al Capone behind bars, and he never really came out, and he was never really the same person after that. Now, this is a very common term. Invested a certain amount of money in a venture, you just continue the venture because you are not likely to get that money back, even if continuing the venture is not the best decision for you. So people just emotional world of economics. However, it is not restricted to the world of economics. So I explained sunk cost fallacy in video region. So I talked about that in video number 201, and video number 202 talked about the reclaim the night movement. Reclaim the night movement, I didn't find data. I found conflicting data here. Some people said it started in Rome in 1976. Some people said it started in England. But I just wanted to focus on the Reclaim the Night movement in England. And it was largely in response to the Yorkshire Ripper murders of the 70s. I believe the first Reclaim the Night march in England was in Leeds. And it talked about, it was in response to the murders committed by somebody who was known as Yorkshire Ripper in the media. I think his real name is Peter Sutcliffe. He is believed to have killed 13 women and assaulted many more. And the response from the authorities at that time, I believe the Yorkshire Evening Post or or some newspaper in Yorkshire had an article which said that women should not go out alone at night to protect themselves from getting attacked. And if they do have to go out, they should go out with a man who they personally knew. So it was in response to these kinds of statements that the Reclaim the Night movement started in 1977 in Leeds, and now it has spread all over the world. In video number 203, this is in response to a poll I had. Number 204, I talked about Bengalis, 4 billion or 140 crore in the world. I believe belong to the particular part of the world. As far as Bengalis are concerned, the biggest link or the most important link connecting all Bengalis is the language Bengali or Bangla. Finally, the most recent long form video that I uploaded on YouTube was the second episode of the Word of the Day or the Words of the Day series with the live streams and YouTube Live, and that would be probably more useful. Thank you for this video, which I